Right now, I actually haven't done any icon painting for about 2 years, and I'm really into videography, trying to learn how to tell a story through video. And the monk that I'm living with, Ajahn Sona, has really made a huge investment and determination to be able to record, especially his teaching styles. He wants to be able to produce really high quality videos. So Ajahn Sona is his YouTube channel, and he has hundreds and hundreds of Dhamma talks. But one of the people at his monastery was a professional videographer, and so she really helped him get it set up, and then she taught me how to do videography. That's a whole other story, but that does relate to the creativity. Yeah. So then when I started go back to the icon painting, I was really afraid to get started into it. And I was just watching my mind about, like, what's the fear of this? But then when I started videography, it was the same thing. I got a program to actually be able to edit, and I finally downloaded it, got on my computer, and I think I waited 2 or 3 months before I ever started to do with it. And I could see, because I was afraid. I was afraid of the unknown, uncertain, not knowing how to do that. But then finally picked it up, and then it was actually fun to kind of learn technology. Because at that point, before that, I kind of joked here, and it's not really a joke, but I would have been a Luddite. So someone did ask Carson asked a question here. Do any monastics compose music as a practice, like do with your art? Not that I know of, Carson. The Buddha was pretty clear with we have a rule against actually playing instruments. A lot of monastics do come from sort of the creative arts. I think it actually takes somebody with a creative mind to actually want to become a monastic, because it's like, we're turning against cultural norms, and just the what we've always been taught, that you go to school and you get a job and you have a career and then you save money for retirement, and for anyone just to sort of say, nah, I'm not going to do that. You have to have some sort of creative plan for how you're going to survive then, and the monastic form does provide that. But then most of us in the West, we don't, even though you may have heard that, we actually really don't know, like, how does that work, because it's not from our culture. We've never really seen that kind of a creative person to become a monastic, and so a lot of us are. And then so I kind of feel sorry for people who are musicians, because they have very clearly a rule against not playing instruments. But people who are writers, I know a lot of monastics who are really, really talented, writing poems or short stories, or being able to write. I do know other people that have painting skills. That I've seen some people that have little tiny notepads that they like watercolors, little paintings that they can go out and do. There's lots of avenues that monastics can do. I've seen people that have portfolios like being photographers. Now some people that are videographers. So there's lots of means that people can do that, but music is one that not. And we were talking about that the other day. We had a talk, and somebody asked that about music, and I think partly it is that music is so got lots of hooks. It's like music is written to have a hook, so it gets in your mind and stays there. For me, with my videography, I occasionally do use music to kind of help create the mood and give me the framework for how I would do sort of nature videos, but I try to do them with music, and it gives me a template of how to, like, where to make the cuts in the music, or it helps create a mood. It works for me to do that because I have no music at all in my head. It doesn't exist. I used to beat myself up when I was younger, because be with my friends, and somebody would just mention a new song that came out, and everybody would know the lyrics and would start singing along. I would be like, that's what I heard in my head. Nothing. I would know the song, but it just wasn't in my head. I couldn't sing it. I couldn't remember the words. The very first meditation retreat I ever did, I was fortunate and got to sit it with 5 of my best friends. And when we were driving back to where we lived, we were just comparing notes. It was all of our kind of like first retreats, and everybody started saying they had music in their head 24 hours a day and just couldn't get it out of their heads. And I was like, didn't hear a thing. They just they all thought I was lying. And then it was the first time in my life I thought, wow, okay, that's not a curse that I can't hear music. It's a blessing. Everybody else has got the curse because they're hearing it. So it was kind of a fun realization. So anyway, for my making the videos, people sometimes have been like, isn't that distracting for you, or isn't that bad? I was like, nah. It's just, I don't, I'll hear it when I'm making the video, but then I turn it off, it's gone. Yes.
Don't you get images though of what you're working on? So you have to be selective what you're.
Well, most of the videos that I do are nature videos. So
But I mean, when you're painting, would you get like the image of the piece that you were working on?
It's really kind of funny. I don't. So the question is like when I'm doing icon painting or just doing painting, like, would it be distracting of having that image in front of me or in my consciousness as I'm going? It's really quite fascinating to me that, like, I can't draw. So it's like, I mean, if I sat here and had a pencil and I was watching you, I could draw you. But I know people who could just like look at you for 10 seconds and then sit down and draw you and draw you almost perfectly just from their memory. Don't have a mind like that. When I'm doing an icon painting, it's like the creativity is happening for me on the canvas. And that's why I actually kind of like the traditional iconography, because it's like this, can be up to like 40 different layers of paint that you're using to get it. For me, it's like the creativity is happening. It's not like the creativity is like to get to the end product. It's the whole development. And so I'll have an idea, like a mood actually of what I want to create. I'll just like keep manipulating it. And it's like, okay, that's it. I got to where I was looking for, but maybe didn't know actually like how I was going to get there. So no, I don't have a memory that keeps things in mind like that. So that's maybe why it does work for me. But yeah, if it was I think I hold on to concepts and ideas. So like if someone says something rude to me, I might hold that all day long. Like going through my head, like, what did I say to them to make them react that way? What's wrong with me, or something like that, or what's wrong with them, or so I hold on to concepts, where I think some people give up concepts, but hold images or music. So getting some questions here. Let's see. Yeah, someone asked just the question: no music, no dance, not for monastics. No, you give up a lot choosing to be a monk or a nun, and that's one of them. And so sometimes keeps people from ordaining. Yeah. Are there any questions here? I'm halfway through my spiel, but anybody? They've already heard me for 3 days talking about all this. So. Did I miss any questions up here?
I don't think so. I think Linda.
Oh, yes, Linda.
Thank you, Sean. I'm just curious how broadly you would umbrella creativity. And you're talking about sort of specific forms, but I think of, so if you could even just characterize, or as you go, just sort of, if, for example, I couldn't paint for anything in this world, but yes, I have views about maybe creativity and what that means. Anything you might say about that, at any time? No,
that's good. Yeah, Linda, guest here, she just asked if, just about creativity in general, not just say from artwork. And I thought that was a really good question. And I was thinking about it last night. The act of meditation is very creative. Like a lot of meditation can be based on visuals. So if you're, like, say, doing contemplation of the body parts, the 32 body parts, one way I was described to do that is actually if you're in Thailand, it's kind of easier to do, but you can actually go to autopsies. So oftentimes the monasteries might have some connections to hospitals, and you can go in when the medical students are doing autopsies. I was able to go to the police morgue on Monday morning after the weekend, and the senior monk who took us on this, he was telling me, it's like, as we were going through, he's like, memorize, what it looks like, how big it is, where it was relationship to the other organs in the body. the smells, all of this. When you then sat and meditated, you could actually bring up the memory of that, the image of that. And so it's a real kind of experience. And also, if you don't have that kind of experience, you can get like encyclopedias or medical books, and you can actually sort of kind of memorize where all the organs are in your body. So then when you're sitting in meditation and you're sort of going through the various body parts, you're actually using your memory. You're actually thinking, and it can be a very creative way too. So like using that as like a creative meditation. I remember when I was in Thailand during my third Vasa, I was sitting, and it was one of these days where it felt like it was 110 degrees and just 100% humidity, and it was just absolutely miserable. I just had this meditation where I was contemplating the body like that, and I just, for some reason, I decided, okay, this is my meditation. I'm going to be creative with this. So I imagined the lab. I decided I was going to go into a laboratory to instead of just imagine myself sitting here going through the body parts. I imagined this beautiful white laboratory room that was air conditioned. I remember making it air conditioned, and so I came in and I had a microscope, little slides. I remember like taking just the tissue of. I was doing the hair of the head, so I took this hair and put it on the microscope on the slide, and I got down the microscope, and I could kind of see it as a tree trunk, because it was so large. And I'd seen an image of it, like in an encyclopedia, and it actually did kind of look like that in a photograph. There's hairs, there's different layers to it, and bark, and there's the heartwood, and so in this imagery, I was just imagining all that and creating that, and spent like an entire afternoon just sort of going through these different slides and totally enthralled, and like 2 or 3 hours went by just doing this kind of meditation. Came back the next day after the meal and did the same. I was going to do the same meditation. I remember it was even hotter, and so I came into this air conditioned room and started meditating, and I was just like, let's imagine a lazy boy over there in the corner. It's this nice, comfortable chair. And so I went and sat down on it, and it's like, let's imagine some Simon and Garfunkel music. And so I started playing this speaker in the laboratory, and sat there for 2 hours and just had this beautiful meditation, listening to Simon and Garfunkel in my head. I say I don't listen to music or hear music, but I did that day for some reason. After the sitting was over, I asked the abbot of the monastery, told him what I'd done, and I said, was that unskillful? He goes, you owe me 2 hours of meditation. He said, no, it was actually very skillful, very using your mind creatively, because I was sitting in meditation, but in my mind I was comfortable in a chair and enjoying what I was doing. But you could go off the deep end with that. Have you been reading these questions? Is there any good ones?
I think that there's a question.
It was a monk friend of mine actually recommended that I read Kurt Vonnegut, a book called Bluebeard. Here, has anybody ever read that book? Has anybody here ever? Yeah, I know many people who love Kurt Vonnegut, but I think very few people have even heard of this book. In his book, there's this one art professor's talking to this student, and he makes this really beautiful comment. He said that what this professor thinks is like what makes great art is an artist who's confronting their trauma, their difficulties, confronting things that they aren't able to do, even as artists, like trying to create that. And he said it's the great art that's actually sort of is able to confront. He said, things like trauma and pain. And so I think actually in the creative process, there can be that. So like I was mentioning earlier, it's like when I first started with egg tempera kind of painting, there was this paralyzing fear for me when I first started it. And maybe that's what I liked about it. What actually sort of challenged me in that medium was to really look at it, what it was I feared, and studying that, and then learning how I overcame that through being able to do a beautiful painting with that particular style. And then the same with videography. Like I say, I sat there for 2 or 3 months with this program before I ever actually picked it up. And it's interesting, maybe this is part of it too, I've never thought about this, but when I have a couple of like probably the best books in the world about iconography, and one of them is like, about that thick and kind of describes every single aspect of it. I had this idea at one point I was going to read it through, but I hate doing that. And so it's like whenever I come up against a technical problem, I can go to that book and use it as reference. But like I don't like kind of reading like through manuals. And I noticed the same thing with the program I have for videography. Yeah. So oftentimes what will happen is I'll get an idea for kind of a creative image that I want to do. And sometimes I do, I have to go online to figure out how it is. But I had this idea of, I knew about like using a blue screen or a green screen to, add images into a thing. So there was one shot I did where there's this log on the marsh at Birken that comes out, and I was waiting for a perfectly blue sky. And so I got the camera kind of down below shooting up at me. And so you see the log, and then it's a blue screen behind me just from the sky. And so I kind of sit down in the middle of the log, and I would start my channel with, hello, I'm Ajahn Jyoti Paulo. Welcome to Sauntering into Silence. That's the name of my channel.
Do you walk? Do you talk? Do you do funny things? Do you run? Do you hide? Are you gonna survive? Do you bite? Do you hide? Do you like camping out? Do you slip? Do you slide? Do you keep yourself alive? There is no situation which cannot be overcome. There is no fear of loneliness can get me on the run. Do you walk? Do you talk? Do you live on the block? Do you sing? Do you play? Do you take it away? Do you act like a sheep? Do you talk in your sleep? Do you dance on a dock? Do you sit upon a rock? There is no situation which cannot be addressed. There is no kind of common sense which cannot be